Hey everybody, welcome back. This week I'm gonna go over, I know last video I talked about this little flash sheet that I put together. It's available on my website. There'll be a link in the description. I'm gonna focus on this little peony today. And so I've gone ahead and I've just traced it out at the size that it comes on this sheet. You're free to, like I said, add all kinds of extra stuff to these, or you can shrink and blow up the size a bit or whatever to suit your project. Today I'm just going to be putting this little guy on a little envelope wallet that I'm just making for myself. I had a friend of mine, he goes by Bo the Maker on Instagram, sent me these wonderful little snaps where he actually lasered my logo onto them. So I just want to make myself a little wallet, see how these sort of wear in. I'll be carrying it going forward, and yeah, let's get down to it. So as I said, this is a pretty simple basic pattern. I went ahead and traced this out. What I'm going to do first though is sometimes I like to add a border to projects like this, like especially when it's something a little bit simpler. So I'm going to go ahead, these are probably the worst wing dividers on the market, but they are just for making a little line. So I'm going to go ahead and set them at 1/4 of an inch. And I'm just going to make myself a little line all the way around. And I'm sure there's going to be some slipping, stuff that might not line up totally properly. It is also really hard to do this while I'm filming, so I will do my best. But what I like to do is just create like a little bit of a guideline that I'm going to go through and cut with my swivel knife. And I'm also going to add a background to this one as well too, I think. I haven't quite decided if it gets painted or not. We'll see. I've had to go back to having a day job, so these videos are going to get a little bit fewer and far between. I'm thinking just going forward for the year, instead of doing once per week, they're going to be once every 2 weeks. I'd rather give you guys quantity over quality. So yeah, I'm sorry. I hope that's not disappointing to anyone. Hopefully you guys can understand. Like I said, this isn't an avenue of income for me. It's just kind of something that I do. I just want to share, some skills and some tips, make available some patterns and things. So if there's anything you'd really like seeing going into this new year, also I hope everybody had a nice holidays too. Where are my manners? Yeah, it's been pretty wild over here. I took a little bit of a break just to sort of clear my head and stuff, and all kinds of cool life things happened. So that's enough of that though. Just gonna get down to it. So the way this little envelope wallet works, I think this is like maybe a make supply pattern that I got a couple years ago when I got into this. So the little sides just fold in. It's stitchless, so it's all held together with a snap. So the male side would go through all these layers and onto here, and then the female snap would go on there. And so it just folds and you're left with this nice little back area. There's quite a bit, you could even take, there's some smaller floral on here too. Like one of these would actually look really stunning, just sort of over top of where the snap goes. I think that's just my opinion, but for today, we're just gonna do this little peony. I'll go ahead and get this traced on here, and we'll take it from there. Okay, so that's all ready to go. This little tool is a ballpoint stylus that I picked up from Buckle Guy. They're cheap. They're less than $10 and they're made in Japan. yeah, I totally forgot I had this, and it's a very nice, useful tool. Next, I'm just going to strop my swivel knife. This is a very quick one too. More than anything, I think the background's going to take quite a while, but that's something I'll do off camera. I don't have to sit, y'all don't have to sit through it. So the swivel cuts on this one are very straightforward. Just going to go through. Okay, that's it. Nice and breezy. That was an entire maybe 2 to 3 minutes. So from there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and background this entire thing. And for that, I've chosen to use this funny little squiggly background stamp. See if it has a number on it. It's an E326. It's from Craft Japan. And I can't remember where I ordered this one from. It was somewhere online though. If I can remember or find the purchase order for it, I will put a link in the description. But this one's just kind of a fun, sort of light, little squiggly texture. And I'm going to go through and do that to the entire background. But first, and I'm definitely forgetting what I originally set out to do, I will cut around this outline that I've made. Which I will bevel also once I'm done the backgrounding. This is my first actual leathercraft project of the year, so please bear witness. I might be a little bit rusty, I think. I've just been focusing on some other things, doing some sort of back-end business stuff. Last year was quite honestly not a great year as far as sales and things went, so I'm sort of readjusting some things. I think I don't want to say I don't have any regrets, you know, like it's really hard to build a business for anyone, and I think the best piece of advice I heard all year last year was Quarter Leather had mentioned, you know, like don't quit your day job until your side hustle starts making more money than your day job does. And I had quit like a couple of years ago. So as I said earlier, I have gone back to having a little bit of a day job, just trying to like pay off some debt. All the debt that I went into building this business. And I think it's really important too to, you know, be careful. Don't start using a ton of credit cards. Don't follow advice where people are just trying to sell you flashy, expensive tools you don't need. I feel like I've mentioned this before, but I have a lot of stuff that I don't use, but that's worth a ton of money. And I bought it because, you know, I thought you had to have all the Palo Santo edge bevelers and stuff and whatever. It was just, yeah, the people I was following, and I tend to I have really bad ADHD, and I'll go down rabbit holes of researching things and stuff, and so I am quite susceptible and gullible to sales pitches and things. So I've definitely learned a lot along the way, and I will always provide tips for doing things on the cheap, because at the end of the day, it's not the tools, it's the person holding the tools. And some of my favorite tools that I use on the regular were quite inexpensive. So I'm actually going to go through and re-wet my leather a little bit. I let it dry out a little bit too much. And personally, I find stamping backgrounds does take a little bit more moisture. I could be totally wrong in that thinking, but it's personal preference. So I also don't go directly against the lines that I'm planning on beveling, just because they will get filled with that other texture, so there's no need to feel as though you have to fit this giant stamp in between like a little sort of nook there. The nice thing about this backgrounder is, because it is such a random pattern, it lends to blending really well. I haven't personally ever tried a basket weave stamp. I don't think I even own one, but I think it's something I would like to explore a little bit more. I have seen some really, really cool backgrounds done with them. And I know I did a video a little while ago about backgrounding, and yeah, it doesn't take a super long time, and it does just sort of make things pop out a little bit once you're done. So one thing I like to do is I will go around, I kind of break things in my mind up into little quadrants. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around this flower and getting as close as I can into the little details without actually stamping onto the peony itself. And then what I'll do is go as close to the edge as possible. So you're kind of creating a little bit of a border into the section that you're working on. And then you can kind of just let her rip for the center, because you're not worried about getting too into the little details and stuff. And there you go. So it is actually not super time consuming once you get a little bit of a rhythm going. Okay, so apparently I'm already blowing it on this. I had pressed record before I did all of this, and it didn't record. So what I'm gonna do is, I prefer just a heavy checked beveler. What you can also do too is, if you want, you can get into some of these little sort of border stamps and kind of follow those around the outside. I think they're really cool. They're not something I've really given myself much time to play around with, but I've seen some really, really awesome stuff out there. So I will definitely, maybe later in the year, give those a shot too. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to travel around the outside of this. And it's just going to really make that border pop out. I like to just kind of slow down like that around corners and sort of curves and things. And so I'm really controlling the movement a lot with this finger. This is just kind of holding it in place. And what I'm doing is as the hammer bounces off, I'm very slightly moving my stamp. And it takes a lot of time to kind of figure out what's most comfortable. For a long time I was just doing single stamps and overlapping halfway, much like that. But as you sort of, you know, grow and practice and keep doing it, you're going to find quicker and more comfortable ways to do things. There she is. And I have taped the back side of this as well too, just so it doesn't contort or stretch as it dries. And now that we're all done, we're done the background. Like I said, this is quite quick. I'm gonna go ahead and start working on this peony. So I'm gonna use my larger heavy checkered beveler as much as I can to get around the outside. I do have a smaller one for some of the sort of tighter spots and details. And as I mentioned, I didn't go right up against it with the background stamp. So you still get this nice transition, and it just really looks like that flower is sitting on top. Oh, and this is a 4 to 5 ounce. So if you want to go a bit deeper, especially with like lifters and things like that, I would suggest maybe a 5/6. This is just going to keep it a little bit on the thin side. I don't personally like really big, bulky wallets to carry. I absolutely love the way that they look, and I love making them. But I'm a very simple person. I don't really ever carry a purse. Sometimes I'll carry a backpack, but for the most part, I have my wallet in my back pocket, and I don't have a ton of cards, so it's just something nice and small is ideal for me. And because of the curve of this one, I am gonna be quite slow with how I go around the outside of it. Oops. Just really intentional with where my beveler is landing. There aren't any super huge sort of nooks, so I think I am actually going to be able to get all the way around with this larger beveler, which is nice. Okay, and so the one thing I like to do is I really like to separate the leaf from the flower. So I like to kind of, you know, set it into the background with the checkered beveler. That's just my personal preference. it's very, very open to interpretation. So the next tool I'm going to use is my vertical striped beveler. I will include a photo too, like last time, of all the ones that I used. So I also like to keep my reference close by too. So as you can see, the petals are sort of like in a little bit of a ball here. So I will start on the outside because all of these will be sitting back of this, you know, that sort of main cluster. So you want to keep that in mind as you're beveling. And this would look great with a smooth beveler, or you can give it a shot with a modeling spoon. This is just kind of the style that I prefer myself. And so with this leaf here, or the petal, sorry, these sort of front petals, this is actually like the side of the petal coming up over, and it's almost like a little, you know, like a little bowl or something. I guess is the best way to describe it. So that means this whole area in here is kind of a shadow area. Now I will come in with a shader and I will show you all that as well too. But I am just sort of establishing the beginning lines. And again with this one, so this will be this sort of inner shadowed area, so I will be beveling to the side of the shadow. So this part does take a little bit longer, I think, than, you know, sort of the initial swivel cuts and backgrounding and things like that, just because you're trying to pay attention a little bit more to how the structure of the piece is going to look. You're going to be planning out sort of your little shadows and things like that. And you can kind of see, like, it does look a little bit weird sometimes while you're doing it, but eventually it's just going to start making a lot more sense. I mean, there's times I get halfway through projects and I'm like, oh my goodness, what am I even thinking of this? Where is it going? And then I'll get like a little bit further into the beveling and shading and I'm like, oh, this is perfect. This is exactly what I wanted. So don't worry. There is, like I said, kind of sometimes those little moments where you're like, where was I going with this? What am I doing? This looks so weird. And it just kind of falls into place. And don't be worried if, you know, a line gets a little weird or wonky, or, you know, you sort of hit outside where you wanted to. It's a flower. You know, flowers are meant to be organic. You know, don't forget you're also making a handmade item. People love mistakes. You know, it just makes them special. Now, even as I say that, I might have personally should have used a little bit smaller of a beveler there. I think I would have gotten a way cleaner looking line. And what I'm going to do after I film this, oops, oh, that's what happened. Fuck. Okay, so after I film this, I will go through and sort of clean that up. I'm just not totally happy with that. I think what I should have done is, oops, I'm also like staring out from behind a phone, so I think I should have maybe taken a little more time and a little bit smaller of a tool, but I will sort of, you know, work out that little bit real quick here. There we go. That's already looking a little bit better. And this is getting quite a bit smaller in here, so I'll bring back that little teeny guy. And with these vertical bevelers, I find it takes like a lot lighter of a tap. They do act as a little bit of a lifter, just they don't have a ton of surface area, so they sink right into the leather real quick. And so that's where, like I talked about in the last video, things like just sort of, you know, messing around on scraps, tapping out some weird lines and stuff, just playing with your stamps to see sort of what kind of impression they're making. And there we go. So the next step, personally, for these little leaf lines and stuff, I'm just going to do a little bit of work with my modeling spoon. Easy breezy. And then I'm going to go find my pear shader and we're going to do the texture in here and then we're done. like I said, it's a fairly quick and easy one. So this is my favorite pear shader. It's a Craft Tool Co. So it's one of the old vintage ones. 209 is the number. I think they still use some of the same number systems. I could be wrong though. I'll have to look it up. But it's just a little vertical striped pear shader. And so what I'm going to start doing is just adding some texture and shading to all these petals. Now these ones, because they are, you know, supposed to be sort of the inside of a petal, I'm going to tap down a considerable amount of that leather. And the same for this side as well. I'm just going to add a couple little taps to just kind of give the petals a little bit of movement and a little bit of texture. So you can see it actually doesn't take too much, and it's really starting to take shape. And again, this is all preference too. I think this would also look pretty cool if you just left it looking a little bit like a line drawing and didn't do any of this beveling and stuff. You know, maybe just opened up the lines a little bit like this with a modeling spoon, you'd be good to go. Especially if you kind of shrank it down and did it on maybe like a keychain or something. It'd also be really cool to see this blown up onto the side of a bag or something. And again, I very much encourage y'all to take those drawings and little flash sheets and, you know, really make them your own and sell whatever you want with them. You know, you want to use parts of them to create stickers and things. That's cool too. I do just ask if you do, you know, make something like a sticker that you credit where you got the drawing from. And I'm just going to add a little touch of shading to the leaf. Not a lot though. And what I'm going to do is I like to just do a light spray when I think I'm done. I find it just helps me sort of see my work a lot better. It just sort of, you know, evens out the color and any sort of blotchiness, but I'm pretty happy with that. So like I said, I did take these down a little bit just because they are, you know, meant to be the inside of a leaf. But that's it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I think, just because this is my wallet, I am going to paint it. I just really like bright stuff. I'm going to leave the background the natural leather, I think, just to see sort of how it ages out too. It's Herman Oak, so it's going to end up quite beautiful. But as I said, this sort of just folds in. Obviously the tape would come off. And you just put a little snaps in there. And quite quickly, you can have a pretty cool looking wallet. So that's going to be it. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Like I said, hopefully I'm going to be able to do these once every 2 weeks now. If I do get more time, I will definitely, you know, throw some little extras in there. I have some fun little tips I'd like to share. And yeah, Happy New Year, and thank you for following along. I'll see you in the next one.